Hello, this is Mark at Skywagon's Podcasts, and we do these videos and get interesting people in to do with aviation and tell their stories about flying and their different careers. And today we've got Ron Hayes in, who's Alaska-based and with a massive amount of bush pilot history we're going to talk about. But the most interesting thing is, Ron, when were you born?
December 5th, 1928.
So you're 94 and a half.
Yes.
And you're here today because you're going to be looking at buying maybe a 180 or 185?
I'm looking at that 180 you have out on the lot.
Good. That's excellent. So, but you've owned Cubs mostly in the past, right?
Well, yes. For 26 years, I was in the hunting business. I started in 1958. I arrived in Alaska in 1956 and immediately understood that you can't do anything without an airplane. So I bought an airplane, learned to fly in a Veronica Champ, and started hunting and then turned it into a business. And we hunted for 26 years, and then I got in a fishing lodge in the end of my career, and we were in that 30-some years.
Where was that?
In Anchorage, and the fishing lodge was in Bristol Bay on the Kvichak River, which is a river that empties the largest lake in Alaska, Iliamna Lake. Yeah.
So what about some of the adventures you've had that you were telling me about in the Cubs?
You know, I hunted polar bear from 1958 until 1972 on the ice pack. We based ourselves out of a village of Point Hope, Alaska, in the beginning, and then we moved to Kotzebue, Alaska, for a little better facilities. Since Point Hope had no hotel, no restaurant, and it was kind of difficult living and pretty primitive there. So we changed our base of operation down to Kotzebue. We used 2 Super Cubs to fly out over the ice pack, and we hunted mostly on the Russian coast.
What time of year is this?
Pardon me?
What time of year do you hunt on the ice?
Well, of course, we hunt them from August, correction, from February 15th until middle April. However, there's no daylight much in the winter in Alaska.
Right.
About February 15th, there's eight hours of total daylight. And you can start then. And it takes us about 8 or 9 hours to go out onto the ice pack. It's 240 miles to Russia. We hunt generally 20 miles off the Russian coast. And it takes a little over 2 hours to do that in a Super Cub, and more than 2 hours to come back. And then if you've hunted northwest, which is away from home, or Kotzebue, you're going to be farther away from home. We have had trips as long as 4 hours coming back one way.
And you're flying over frozen sea ice?
Yes, and 20% of it's landable.
Oh.
80% is not. Because of pressure ridges, open leads, and any uneven ice.
So how did you deal with what if you had an event on the ice?
An event. We had an event. We lost 1 Super Cub.
Oh. My
partner ran on takeoff, he ran into a lead. A lead is a crack in the ice. It was 6 foot wide when he ran over it, and the skis fell in the lead, and it just ripped the gear right off of the plane. He went scooting across the ice on the other side of the lead, but we had to leave the plane there. And we all came home in 1 Super Cub.
So you always go with
4
2?
people.
2 Cubs, always?
Always 2 Cubs. In the beginning, the old hunters started this business, like John Swiss, Nelson Walker, Leon Schellenberger, some of the real old-timers. They started with 1 airplane, but it was risky, and it was not safe.
No, and did you, when that happens, can you go back and get...
We tried to go back. There was a storm coming in, and it lasted 5 days. We couldn't get back out there for 5 days. We couldn't find the airplane. Of course, this is in the days before GPS.
Yeah.
If we'd had GPS or even ran, we would have found that airplane.
Isn't it moving?
It's moving, and it's quite feasible to move 20 miles a day in the currents.
Mm-hmm.
If you're down close to the Bering Straits in the currents,
Right.
strong currents down there, ice can move 20 miles a day, but maybe 3 or 4 miles a day would be common.
So you never found it?
Never found the airplane, no.
How did you get 4 people home?
Just first you put one guy in the far end of the baggage in a Super Cub. I mean, right up next, his face is right up next to the back bulkhead. His feet are way back in the fuselage. The
Facing
next guy
backwards.
comes and sits behind him with his back to back to back. Now his feet are pointing that way. The next guy sits between his legs in the seat. 2 guys are essentially sitting in the baggage compartment.
So and then the pilot gets in last.
Yeah, he gets the best seat too.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I've rode in the back.
Oh, have you?
When my plane breaks, I get to ride in the back.
Oh.
I was wolf hunting and I landed in a rock pile. Broke my airplane, of course. And my partner in hunting wolves at that time was a guy named Bill Sims. One of the best wolf trackers I ever seen in my life. Bill was a good partner. And I wrecked my airplane, landed in a rock pile on 6 wolves. And I didn't realize that fresh snow on that rock pile. And it just fell right into the rocks. Big rock pile. Big rocks. So I wrecked my plane, and Bill was off down about a mile away trying to track another wolf down for his client. We did it for clients.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I'll be right back up there as soon as I get this wolf. So I waited around a while, and he finally called and he said, we got troubles. I just broke my gear. I said, oh my. And we discussed it a little bit on the radios.
Are you far away from civilization?
We're about a mile away apart.
Oh, but how far from rescue?
Oh, there's no rescue. I mean, it's back in the Brooks Range.
Oh.
I mean, that's long ways. I mean, if somebody who we knew would know to come and help us, but you got to get a hold of them. No communication in those days.
Hmm.
So he said, I broke my left ski. I said, well, I think my left ski's okay. My gear's broke, but my left ski's okay. I said, I'll just take it off and drag it down there. And that's what I did. And we put my ski on his plane. We all 4 went home. I got to sit in the baggage.
Damn. I mean, and you still live in Alaska today?
Only half of the time.
Okay.
I live in Fort Worth, Texas in the winter.
Oh, okay. Sensible.
Yeah. Well, I kind of got tired of winters in Alaska. I don't really have any active thing to do, and it's not a pleasant place in the winter if you're not doing something like a business.
But you flew a lot of floats when you were working too, didn't you?
Lots of floats. And in later years, our last 20-some years, we've been fishing in fishing lodge. Like I said, on the Kvichak River. It empties the largest lake in Alaska, Lake Iliamna. And we built a fishing lodge there from scratch. I mean, right out in the middle of nowhere, we started with nothing. Built a very, very modern lodge. And we used beavers in that operation. De Havilland beavers, DHC2s.
How did you build the lodge? Did you have to fly everything in?
No, we had a river delivery with barge.
Mm.
I bought it all in Seattle and had it shipped up there.
Wow. And there was no runway? It was all floats?
I had a 600-foot runway just for a Super Cub. We could land a 180 there.
Mm. What kind of...
not much load.
No, I bet. Were there any sort of float, there's a lot of skill involved with not floating down a river.
Actually, on a swift river, yes, there is very lots of skills involved to keep from wrecking your airplane. I mean, can you imagine floating down a river with the engine not running, and round and around you go down this swift river? It's happened to us before.
With guests.
Oh, yeah. It's always with guests, unfortunately.
Have you ever been out?
Well, you just hit the bank and damage your floats.
Oh.
It's not super dangerous, but it can be expensive.
Have you ever had one float away?
I have, but only in a lake. One time I landed in this little lake. I pulled the plane up pretty good. And I went away and went fishing over about a mile away to the river. The river was too swift to land in at that point. There's a river called the Alaskan River. So I landed in a small lake, about half a mile wide. I get back to the plane after fishing all day. The plane's nowhere to be found. I look across the lake. There it is, over there on the other bank.
A beaver?
No, this was a 206.
Okay.
We used them in the beginning, 206s and 185s, but we quickly learned beaver is the only way to go in the fishing business. But the plane's crossed the lake at probably a mile and a half to walk around that little lake, all the way around the circumference or the side of it. Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Guests sitting there. I did have another kind of an interesting experience on a beaver. A beaver is a tricky airplane to be messing around with on the water, on the steppe.
Okay.
Downwind.
Oh, so when it's planing.
If you're taxiing downwind on the steppe, you better not have any flaps on. If you make a left turn, it's not going to straighten out. Not unless you can catch it right now, because you can't give it enough right rudder to get it straightened out. And of course, you're making turns in these rivers. We didn't operate on rivers that were straight. There's always a turn in them. So one time I was in this river called Big River across the peninsula from our lodge, and I landed in it, and I went away a while to fix another camp within 20 miles of there. And I stayed there messing around to come back later to get my customers, and the weather got bad, like real bad. And so I hustled in there and got them. It's up to 25 knots of wind now. And I landed into it on the river because it's a short landing field. And there was no way to land downwind in that 25, 28 knots of wind. So I landed into the wind. Now I got to turn the airplane downwind back up, facing upriver to get back to my customers. Big job if you're ever trying to turn beaver alone around downwind upriver. So I got it finally turned around, and in all the excitement, I'd forgot to pump the flaps down. They were down landing flaps. I went around the left turn going back up to my customers that wouldn't straighten out. Right up on the beach, a gravel beach. And by the time I realized, which is seconds, shut her off, she's already around 200 yards up on that beach and about 50 feet away from the river.
Oh.
It never did turn anymore once I hit that gravel. You can't turn them in the gravel unless you force them. So there I sat, people running for their life up the beach there, thinking I'm going to run over them. What's that crazy SOB doing,
And it's just
what
slides.
kind of pilot is that?
It just slides on the gravel.
Real easy. It won't slide on sand, but it'll slide on gravel, little pea gravel. And so there I sat thinking, how dumb can you get? I probably had 10,000 hours at that time in my life. This hasn't been that long ago. So they helped me, all the guides and the clients, they helped me. You get a hold of the tail stringer, put a rope on it, and start pulling sideways, and everybody pulls on the float, gets it straight going back towards the river. It's maybe 70 feet from the river. 80. Now you got to go find all the alder bushes you can find, dead ones around here and there on the river. Put them under the floats. Now, it takes a lot of people to lift the float. Beaver's heavy.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have to lift it far, though. And just stuff them under there. And then stuff them in front of the float for 20 feet. And then get in it and
taxi it over those.
Start her up and start working those rudders like this and back and forth with that wheel and get that thing. Once it starts moving, there's no stopping it. That beaver has a lot of power.
Yeah.
Boom! I shot across those alders and I was afraid of hitting it. It's only about 80, 90 feet across the river. I was afraid I was going to hit the other bank.
Oh, no.
But I didn't. Got turned around, loaded up my passengers, and headed back for the lodge. And that wasn't the end of the day. We hit some of the worst weather of my life there. The weather around the place, Cape Douglas it's called. Cliffs 1,000 foot high, right straight to the ocean. And then this mountain 10 or 11,000 feet above that. You go around that, and rather than go out to sea, the ocean waves are 12 feet. Wind's up to 30 knots now.
So you can't land in the water either?
Absolutely, it'll kill you. 10, 12-foot waves, can't even come close. You'll be upset in 50 feet or less.
What's the roughest you can land in?
A couple feet's pretty without damaging your airplane. I've landed at Brooks Camp, which is in the Katmai Park, and waves 2 or 3 feet high. It's dangerous, so. Trouble of it is you're generally trying to land and take off parallel with that wave. Or in other words, you don't want to try to slap it right square, perpendicular. That's really bad. So when you're going with a wave and your wings are down,
So it's rolling over them
the
sideways.
waves coming up and you're on this side of it now you're on this side of it. It's tricky. Got to watch out in the waves. Lots of airplanes been wrecked there. It's a graveyard for airplanes around that place. I mean, I know of 4 or 5 for sure.
That's a lot of experience you've had.
Yeah, it's wind. It's the wind's the problem. You land there, it's a perfect day. Beautiful, glassy calm. Oh, what a wonderful day. We're going to watch the bears and catch a few rainbow and have a really nice time. 2 hours later, it's blowing 40. You don't wait that long, of course. But after it gets up to 25, you start saying, hey, guys, we got to go. So by the time you gather your people up and get them in an airplane, it's up to 30 now. Now it's starting to get dangerous because the waves can build up in this big lake. The lake's 20, 30 miles long for sure. It's dangerous, but using good judgment, you can deal with it.
So how many hours do you have now, Ron?
28,000 or but. I quit logging then.
And it's all in small single-engine bush.
I don't even have a rating for a twin. It's all single engine. And Super Cubs probably dominate the time of that 28,000. Next would be 185s and 206s. Lots of 185s and 206s. Believe it or not much 180s time.
Really?
Lots of beaver time.
What do you prefer? What's your favorite plane?
Oh, I don't know. I love that 206. Unfortunately, it's not economical to own, if you're a private pilot. And in the fishing business, it's not cost effective. You got to haul 4 customers to make it pay. Now you got to have 2 guides in there. That's 6 already, and the pilot's 7.
Is that why they're all going
That's
to like?
not legal, nor is it feasible.
Because now they're like turbine otters.
Yes, but you got to have $1,000,000 to buy the engine.
Yeah.
They're a wonderful airplane. One of our operators had those turbine 207s.
Oh, really?
They could put 8 people in them, and they could go like that when they took off.
Wheels and floats.
They were on floats.
Of your
Period.
Of your 28,000 hours, how much of it is floats?
Oh, probably 7,000 or 8,000. I'm guessing now.
And if you buy one here, you're going to put it on floats.
I'm going to try to. Yeah, mainly what I'm doing since I've retired is I go see my old crony buddies. A lot of them are dead already, but there is a couple of them alive, and they run lodges, and I can go visit them.
Excellent.
And that's a long ways away. From Anchorage, it's 600 miles.
Oh.
It's a long ways.
Yeah.
Out on the peninsula near a place called Port Moller, Alaska, down in that area.
So you probably lived through the heyday of Alaskan bush flying.
Yeah, I've seen most of it.
And
I didn't have the tough bush flying like the early bush pilots.
When they had
no navigational aids.
And
no weather.
Yeah, and basic planes.
Just basic, pure basic. You know, some of them didn't even have a turning ball, or anything in them. Just plain.
Yeah.
Oil pressure.
No, it's very
I
interesting.
admired those guys. I read a lot about them, and they're the bush pilots.
Yeah, Don Sheldon and Ben Eielson.
Well, he's not. I'm talking about before him.
Oh, when the planes were fabric.
Yeah.
Big ones.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, it's been very interesting.
Thank you.
I mean, you've got to be up there with the oldest licensed pilot in the world, I think.
No, I'm not even the oldest in Alaska.
Really?
No.
There was a guy here at Placerville called Charlie years ago. I think he was in the Guinness Book of Records at 94. And he stopped flying. So you're already ahead of him.
Yeah.
Well,
I still got a basic. If I buy your airplane out here, I'm going to have some help going through Canada with it. Those Canadians aren't honoring that basic.
Oh, that's true. You might have to go around it. Bellingham.
I don't want to do that.
I'll find somebody.
On wheels.
No.
I'm apprehensive about water. I've had a lot of friends go down that water, and you don't have a chance.
On wheels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, thanks very much for
having
a chat. I could talk to you for 20 hours more. But that was very interesting to hear that. A real out of the horse's mouth.
Thanks, Mark.
So, very interesting. Rare opportunity to speak to somebody with that amount of experience. Thanks for watching. It's Skywagons podcast. We have a subscription here. You can click on a link and a little bell. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it.